and welcome back to So This is Thailand. Coming up is expert advice, and today we're looking at health with the expert in the studio, Mr. Kenneth Mays, who is the Hospital Marketing Director at Bumrungrad International Hospital. Great for having you here.
Nice to be here.
Well, I know Thailand is always being marketed as the medical tourism hub of Southeast Asia and maybe even of the world. Starting right off though, for all those new expats who are coming into Thailand, what seems to be, in general, the most common ailments?
Well, I think it's probably the tropical kind of stuff, the things that are related to the sun and the heat. I think that some of the more dangerous diseases like malaria, cholera, typhoid are all pretty much under control. You don't have to worry about that. But just to be out in the sun and out in the heat, you got to be a little careful, got to slow down a little bit, hydrate, make sure you have plenty of liquids.
Well, I know when I came here, back here, I might say, many years ago, I had to have a whole slew of inoculations and injections, and is that still the case today?
Well, there's a table of things that you should get, and you can consult your doctor in terms of the thing, but they're generally the same type of things that you should get no matter where you're from. I think some of the things you're talking about may refer to remote areas. If you travel to remote areas, you should look into that, but not for the average expat who's just hanging out in Bangkok. Excellent.
Now, we had mentioned before when we were discussing about the healthcare system here, coming from, let's say, a Western system, all those HMOs and god-awful systems we have, might use the example of the US. How does it work here in Thailand?
Well, it's much more retail. There's a lot of good hospitals here. Consumers or patients have a lot of great choices, and those choices mean that you get instant access. You can see doctors right away. You don't have to wait around for a long time. Excellent value, because people, if they don't like the facility or the comfort or the service or the quality of doctors at one place, they can just vote with their feet and go to another place. So you get really good value at the hospitals here. The doctors are excellent quality. And one way to think about it is it's kind of like a mixture of the medical quality that we often associated with the developed Western countries with the service efficiency and the warmth and gentility of service and caring that you associate with Asia.
Well, I know that the Thai service industry is world-renowned, and as you mentioned, in terms of the friendliness. Something that comes to mind is when you're looking at the nurse-to-patient ratio or the amount of staff at the hospitals. For anyone who's actually visited a Thai hospital, you can clearly see there's a lot more staff there waiting on the customers. Is this still true?
That's true. That's true, and people comment on that and come back for that.
For the people who come here, what are some of the most popular services or most popular procedures that they have done?
Well, there's the whole variety of procedures. It depends on what you're talking about. Elective procedures, of course, there's cosmetic procedures that people have done. Bangkok's kind of known for that. But for the average expat, they just want to stay well. They're going to take their kid there if they have a sore throat. If you have a back pain or something like that, you're going to go see a spine specialist. And if you have serious things, some problem with your heart, something that's threatening like cancer or something like that, you can get that done here, and the quality and the expertise and the technology that's applied is going to be the same as a hospital in Los Angeles or a hospital in London.
You touched upon something about talking with specialists. Now, I know, again, using the US as an example, in general, I would go to see a general practitioner if I had some pain or ache, who would then probably refer me to a specialist who would maybe refer me to another specialist. Is that the case here in Thailand?
That's a big difference in Thailand. The Thais like to self-refer to specialists, and the best Thai doctors like to get advanced specialty training overseas. As a result, there's a much higher ratio of specialists to general practitioners here. So the good news is that you can self-refer to specialists. That's common. That's what most people do. If I have a back pain, I'm going to go see an orthopedic or a spinal specialist. See a woman's doctor, you take your kid to a pediatrician and so forth. If you're looking for a general practitioner or a family doctor, it may be harder to find one. I think it's still important for an expat to establish an ongoing relationship with a doctor, whether it's a woman with her OB/GYN, whether it's a man perhaps with his cardiologist. That's the doctor that's going to get to know you over time, and the doctor that knows you over time is going to be able to treat you more effectively over time.
Given all the different countries in the world, all the different expats from all the different countries in the world coming here, is language a problem when speaking with the doctors?
Not with the doctors, particularly if you're going to the top international hospitals. And most of the expats, there's a lot of choice of hospitals, but most of the expats will end up going to one of 3 or 4 hospitals here in Bangkok and a few of the hospitals up country if they're living up country. In those hospitals, the doctors are virtually all going to speak English. Many of them will have trained overseas. Some of them will be board certified overseas. So you're not going to have a problem there. You'll find a bit less English with the nurses. Now at our hospital, a lot of the nurses, most of the nurses speak English, but it's going to be maybe a little bit harder to make your wishes known as it was in your home country. We have about 140 interpreters at our hospital, French, German, Spanish, Vietnamese, Chinese, and so forth. So an expat who comes from a non-English speaking country is generally going to be able to get some help too.
Great. Well, I know a lot of people who are watching and thinking, wow, this sounds great. This sounds too good to be true. In fact, where's the proof behind the pudding in terms of accreditation?
Well, it's comforting to a patient because when you go to a hospital as a patient, there's a lot of things you can't see that happen behind the scenes. And hospitals should be safe places. They should be doing things right behind the scenes. Our hospital was the first to be accredited in Asia in 2002, 10 years ago. And hospitals get accredited every 3 years. There's been several other Thai hospitals that have been accredited since then. It's an organization called the Joint Commission International. It's the same organization that accredits U.S. hospitals. And they send in a team of medical professionals. They spend a week at your hospital. They open cabinets. They ask for case histories and paperwork, talk to patients, follow nurses around, basically scare the daylights out of the hospital staff to make sure that you're doing things right and things are done in a safe manner. And then when they finally stamp and say you're accredited, it really means something.
Well, I know a lot of people, they look at Thailand, they know it's a great tourist destination, but there might still be that stigma that, it is developing. It's not a Western developed country. It's not one of the power players. But as you mentioned, in terms of many of the services we have here, they are world class. Looking on let's say the equipment side, we've talked about services, we've talked about doctors as well. In terms of the level, the modernness of your equipment, X-ray machines, your blood testing machines, are those also at that level?
Those very expensive machines like an MRI, like a CT scan are going to be bought from the big companies like Siemens and GE that sell that equipment to the top hospitals all around the world. You're going to find the same machine here as you find in a hospital in San Diego or Atlanta. So yes.
So I guess I can see why there's so many foreigners coming here. When you compare the cost of care overseas versus the cost of care here, is there really that much difference?
There's a huge difference. We're about 50 to 70% less expensive than the U.S. for similar procedure. And for that, you probably get more care, more attention, and you'll get maybe a U.S. board certified surgeon, a doctor that's worked in the U.S. And so it just has to do with doing a lot of the layers, doing away with a lot of the layers of bureaucracy and the things that get between the doctor and the patient that you find in many of the more developed countries. Thailand has a really unique and refreshing system that has that medical quality, the service quality without all those extra layers, and it results in great access and great value for the patient.
Would you recommend that foreigners who know they'll be relocating and actually spending whether it's a short or a long period here in the country, if they have some pre-existing medical conditions or they have medical records from the past, should they bring those over here, or would you recommend they kind of come here, get all the tests done, redone, so that there's a kind of an up-to-date record?
Well, I would see the doctor here about that. I would certainly bring all those records in and I would discuss that with the doctor. Your first meeting with your doctors here are going to take your medical history and they're going to be interested in all that thing. But then depending on how recently you've had those things done, where you got them done, they may order some new tests. And it's a good idea to have a pretty comprehensive checkup every year, particularly as you get older, just to make sure everything's working right.
Excellent. Well, one last question. I know something that people, they hate going to the doctor, number one, because, well, it usually means that they're sick. But they don't want to have to, if I'm hurting today, I don't want to see the doctor in 2 weeks. In terms of, I guess it comes back to the number of staff there are in the hospital, number of doctors and nurses, to the number of patients. Is there long queues? Do I have to wait a long time to find a specialist? Or can I pretty much guarantee that, if I'm hurting today, I'll receive treatment today?
You can come in and receive treatment today. The access is fantastic. And I would tell everybody, don't wait, because almost any medical problem is better earlier. The sooner you can see a doctor and get it resolved. I know there's that psychological thing like, I hope it goes away and so forth. But if you come in and they can find something, then lucky you found it early and they can usually treat it more effectively.
Excellent. Well, Kenneth, thank you very much for joining us today. And hopefully everyone watching learned a little bit more about medical services here in Thailand. World class. Beats them all, I might say. So good health to you. Don't go away though, because we have more coming up on So This Is Thailand.
One of the great treasures of this island is the Mon pottery making here. The real masters at work here. And we're going to take a look around, see what we can find. Come on, gang, let's see what we can do.
The main inhabitants of the island of Gokret are ancestors of the Mon tribes who were commonplace in central Thailand between the 6th and 10th centuries. The Mons have their own distinct form of Buddhism, with more emphasis on superstition and astrology than their Thai cousins. Spirits are an important part of the Mon form of Buddhism. They are also adept with their pottery making skills, a main source of income for many of the inhabitants of the island. The clay for the hand-thrown earthenware pottery is gathered locally from the island itself.
And here at Gokret, the local craftsmen are renowned at their pottery making. They make fantastic things, particularly a style called Guan Aman. And you can see here, here's a piece. It's made of unglazed red clay, but carved with unbelievably intricate patterns.
Most of the pottery can be sought out at the small individual potters along various lanes and footpaths. Kiln-baked, unglazed terracotta best describes the engineering side of the pottery business, but there are some fine ornate specimens, but also simple candle holders and incense burners, anything from a few baht to a few thousand baht. There is also an O-top area with stunning displays of the locally made terracotta. More than likely, you will see one of the craftsmen hand carving the clay before it enters the kilns. This is painstakingly detailed work, carried out by devoted experts with skills handed down through many generations.
So one of the most unique types of pottery here at Gokret is this style of urn, a water container. On the side, it's got a lot of very intricate, beautiful design. And then on the top is this, which is?
A phoenix.
A phoenix, that's right. This style of urn has been passed down through the generations here at Gokret.
It would be easy to stay for hours just watching the skill and mastery of the pottery carvers on this small island. Centuries of handed down skills of the Mon families have ensured that the Gokret pottery is here to stay and quite unique in its quality and appearance.
So we've had a fantastic day here at the Mon village. We never realised how skilled the Mon craftsmen are. See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.